The FedUpward Podcast, a place for federal employees and friends of feds to find strategies and tactics to navigate everyday problems.
This is a difficult time, and life unfolds in mysterious ways, and we have to trust that there's something building that's not only what we see in front of us right now.
And now, a quick word from our sponsor.
From launch pads
We have liftoff
to research labs, civilian Fed life leads to many places, all covered by WAEPA. WAEPA offers fully portable group term life insurance for current and former civilian Feds. This coverage answers whatever life brings, with benefits that follow wherever service calls. WAEPA. For Feds, by Feds.
Hi, folks. This is Love Rutledge, host of the FedUpward Podcast, here today with Alex Snider, who is one of the co-founders of the Mindful Fed community and movement within the federal government, helping us focus on our mental health and well-being, and longtime federal employee himself. So, Alex, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Love. It's great to be here.
Can you give my listeners a little background on who you are and the kinds of jobs that you've been doing, and then catch us up on how you came to co-create Mindful Fed?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So I've been a federal employee for just over 15 years, initially with the State Department. And part of what has come up to me is throughout my federal career is it's not just about what we do, it's how we do it. And one of the fun little paths for me that has weaved within my federal career has been a background in meditation and mindfulness. And so as I've sort of come into that work, both in my personal life, but also thinking about what it can mean professionally. And so that's where what happened was I had this interest in mindfulness and meditation, and I learned that I wasn't the only one within the federal space that also had that interest. And so the sort of brief origin story of Mindful Fed, which is a cross-government mindfulness community, which, by the way, has between, I think, 4,000 to 5,000 members, and our weekly sessions have between 150 to 200 people on them, which is a really cool thing across agencies. It came about because people with this shared commitment towards thinking a bit more about how we do our work, being more mindful, being a little bit slower, and how we go about our day-to-day. We found each other through sort of the way that those things happen. Someone knows someone who knows someone, and we connected to each other, and we had a bit of a Zoom call a few years ago. And we said, well, this is great that we're doing this at all our individual agencies, but in this era of Zoom and connecting virtually, like, why don't we do it together? Why don't we share our resources, share our ideas, share our communities? And so, about 2+ years ago, we started this little group, and it's really become this great connecting body that it is now.
So it is a great community. I know I receive your emails every week. If folks want to sign up for that, can you tell them where to go before we dig in a little deeper?
Yeah, and maybe you can put this in the show notes, but there's a sign-up email, or basically you send any email. I think it's subscribe@mindfulfed. We'll put the email up there, but it's simple, pretty easy. We send out one weekly email. We have one weekly session, and it's a great way to stay connected to the community.
All right. Thanks for that. Obviously, we're in a time right now where federal employees are looking for connection and a way to make sure that they're taking care of their mental health. We're, as a community, I think, not feeling very psychologically safe and having lots of feelings about things that are going on in each of our agencies and departments. You've been writing some articles in Psychology Today and other publications about how folks can focus on themes that can help them feel a little more calm and handle everything that's coming our way. So tell us a little bit about your most recent article in Psychology Today and why you wrote it.
Thanks, Love. And thank you for naming that this is a difficult time for federal employees. Change is hard for all of us in our personal lives, whether it's our bodies changing, our families changing. But for our careers to change too is really challenging. And I think it's important to name that there are changes in administration that is not a new thing for federal employees. But this particular one, at least for me, as someone who's done a couple of these, feels quite different in character. And that's hard. It's been hard for me. It's been hard for others. And so part of my intention behind writing and writing publicly is to make people feel, or to help them feel a little bit less alone, because it's hard to go through difficult things, and it's even hard to feel like you don't have a space where you can feel heard, feel understood. And so the most recent article I wrote is called Trust the Pendulum Swing. It is something that came from both my personal experience with struggle, with adversity, with hard things that came in my life, as well as my experience in the workplace too. Back when I worked at the State Department, we'd have new leadership come and go fairly regularly, and that would create changes in what was important. Projects that I've been working on for many years were sort of instantly shuttered, and I had to sort of pivot. And in this moment, that's what's happened to a lot of people. Both projects that they've invested a lot of their lives and care into have all of a sudden become, to put it gently, deprioritized. And there's the more rash things that the way that we've been treated has not been one that values public service, that values what we do, that values what we put our life and heart into. And so part of what I tried to communicate in this latest article is that these moments that can seem pretty dark, pretty bleak, that's not the end of the story. That there's a larger arc to changes in our life that doesn't mean that the only momentum is going toward more pain, more difficulty. But there's also sort of these counterbalances that come up. And sort of, I use the metaphor of the pendulum, of how when the kind of the pendulum goes to the other side, it's building up this energy to swing back. And I share a story of my kind of personal dealing with relationships and breakups, and sort of how what I'm able to find in myself when I'm not partnered is actually something that helps me find that partnership. And in the context of federal employees whose work, feels like it's not as valued by those in power, for federal employees themselves who are either losing their job or at risk of losing their job, yes, that's difficult. It's important to be with that feeling, the pain, that suffering. We can't dismiss that. I think there's too much of that. The phrase, "it is what it is like, well, we got to deal with it. Like, why are you complaining? I don't personally think that's a healthy way to go through life. And I also don't think it's healthy to only see the negative. And part of this idea of the pendulum is that there is something else coming too. And I think one of the examples I use in the article is certainly the main political conversation today is that of federal workers not being particularly useful, not being particularly professional, not being particularly committed to their jobs. That's certainly the more pervasive public narrative that's happening now. I think it's also possible this is a moment when there's a kind of a rejuvenation of the public service spirit, when we realize that actually government does matter a whole lot. Actually, public servants who've given their lives, their livelihoods to government, they are really important. And I think we're already starting to see a little bit of that shift. And so my offering through this article, and hopefully through these words and through your beautiful podcast, Love, is that we can remember that, yes, this is a difficult time, and life unfolds in mysterious ways. And we have to trust that there is something building that's not only what we see in front of us right now.
And now, a quick word from our sponsor.
ClearanceJobs, the leading digital network for cleared professionals, has launched FedWork.net, connecting federal employees with news, insights, and community. The public forum serves as an extension of the ClearanceJobs career community, empowering feds to stay connected and informed. Visit FedWork.net to search and start discussions, and create a free profile at ClearanceJobs.com to find your next cleared role.
Curious how that lands for you, Love.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, we all as apolitical civil servants have gone through these transitions before, but I think you're absolutely right that this one feels different, and that federal employees have been kind of publicly maligned in the press and certainly in social media. And so having a sense that things will get better in the future and having hope that that perception will change is helpful. I know all of us are kind of struggling in different ways right now, regardless of your political affiliation, regardless of which agency or department you work in. There's a lot of change, and change can be unsettling. And so knowing that, again, if things don't feel right, that might not be the end of the story. It can be a helpful message for people to embrace, again, regardless of where you find yourself working or in what part of the political spectrum you find yourself sitting in. Alex, where can we find some of your articles and what you've written about if folks want more of this kind of message that might be uplifting or settling for federal employees?
Yeah. So 2 ways to find me. I have a website, slowmindfulness.com, that has links to some of my writings. I also have a Substack, and I write for Psychology Today. I have a blog there. Both are under the title Human Bureaucracy. That's probably the best way to find me.
Okay, great. We'll link that up in the show notes. And I hope folks will consider joining the Mindful Fed community. It is a great resource for us, along with things like your employee assistance program. So don't forget about that too, because you can access therapy and counseling resources through that. And then Mindful Fed is just another tool in your toolkit to make sure that you're taking care of yourself, mentally and physically as we move through this time of great change. Alex, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you, love.
Thanks for listening, friends. If you liked what you heard today, I hope you'll subscribe to the podcast and share it with a friend. To join my mailing list, head over to fedupwardcoaching.com/podcast. Talk soon.